folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. Today, my special featured guest is back once again. It's none other than USA Eagles head coach Gary Gold. Hey, Gary, how it?
Very well, thank you, Chris. Good to be back. Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot. You're a very busy man, so let's get right to it. I know you got a busy day ahead of you and a big Major League Rugby weekend coming up here, so let's get right into it. All right, so I don't know if you can answer some of these questions. You and I have not had a chance to discuss this ahead of time, so if I blindside you, you can just you can definitely say, well, that's something that's under discussion right now. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, will there be a summer test series? There are rampant rumors that we are negotiating with England and the Springboks for tests this summer. Is there any truth to that, or can you address it?
There will be a summer test series. It is in the diary. Everybody's working really hard at the moment to try and get something in place. It would probably be a bit irresponsible of me to say all those rumors are true, but nothing has been confirmed yet. Unfortunately, as we all know, Chris, at the moment, everything's a moving target with COVID, So a little bit of a curveball from our point of view has been the fact that the Lions tour has gone back to South Africa and they're going to play it there. We were in negotiations with South Africa, but now we have to wait and see in terms of isolation periods. And obviously our guys are in the middle of MLR as well, and that's a priority as well to make sure that the players and their respective clubs are looked after. But there is a summer test series in the pipeline, and yes, I have no doubt we'll have a couple of games over at least June and first couple of weeks of July. Yes.
No, I think that's good news. Whoever the opponents will be, it'd be good to get the boys back on the pitch. I mean, you guys haven't been on the field since the World Cup. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. I mean, thankfully, everybody's playing back again now. Obviously, you and I saw each other at MLR on the weekend, and all of our boys are playing in the States, playing back at MLR, and it's been amazing to watch not only the MLR being back, but also the level of the quality of the MLR, and then obviously our guys who are playing in Europe have been playing for a period of time. So at least our players are playing. So maybe I'm looking for the silver lining, but it is a real silver lining. It's great that our players are actually playing at the moment now. And so, when or if those tests are confirmed, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later, then our guys will be match fit and will be in a position that they're playing week in and week out.
Well, I think you made a good point there. One is that the fact that Major League Rugby is back, guys are playing, and that's where most of your selections, if not all your selections, are likely to come from, I suspect. The good news is that guys should be fit by the time you get around to holding a training camp. But I think you point out something that a lot of us really are now probably wondering if it's even possible, is the fact that the British and Irish Lions test series was up in the air for months. And then Australia made an offer to host it, which was odd, but very kind of them to do that, but odd. And then the talk of doing it in England, but once every dozen years and then doing it in England was not a good option. So now that it's back on, there's a dozen games or so that the Lions will be playing in South Africa against rugby unions and against the Springboks. So that's going to fill up a lot of their summer. So it'll be tough for you guys to schedule against either of those teams. And I think that USA Eagle fans should be forgiving, because this is a circumstance that you don't have any control over. And while it's exciting to hear potentially about a match with England and or the Springboks, maybe that won't happen. Maybe it won't, but whoever it'll be, at least we'll get some test rugby this year, this summer. That's a good sign.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think all of those fixtures are going to happen. I can't see logistically how that is all going to be able to come together anymore now. But I think one or the other will happen. I've just unfortunately learned my lesson the hard way of putting my foot in it a little bit too early and being optimistic. And so, I mean, the truth of the matter is at the moment, nothing is confirmed yet. I don't mind saying it's looking really optimistic for us to go to England. I mean, World Rugby are behind that, and we're trying to make that happen. But everything's dependent on COVID. It's not dependent on our desire or England's desire. I mean, what isn't a secret is that it was in the test diary for England to travel to Canada and USA. And, I don't think that's going to happen anymore now, but I think those games are still going to potentially take place. and then they're talking about us being able to play somebody else as well in the summer if we are over there. So that's exciting. That's exciting. And then post that, it's in the diary that we've got a Rugby World Cup qualifiers in the first 2 weeks of September against Canada. So that's a big priority for us this year.
Well, that's a question I want to get to, and you've got to a little bit early on me there, and that's fine. What I want to ask you is I think it's a bit confusing for rugby fans because World Rugby took the decision to automatic qualification for USA and Canada for the 2023 World Cup in France. That's where we're at right now. But the confusion is, I'm not sure. I didn't really for me as well. I didn't understand because if we went with the last qualification, then it would have been USA and Uruguay, and Canada would have been out. If we went, so they picked a different stage. I'm not sure how they did that. Maybe you can explain. Are you guys competing to see who's the number 1 draw and who's the number 2 draw amongst USA and Canada?
No, it's actually, you misunderstood it a little bit there. That they was, I think what World Rugby were trying to say is that because of COVID and what's going on at the moment now in North America, it'll be between ourselves and Canada to qualify. Or ourselves and Canada are the only 2 candidates who can qualify from the North America. Uruguay still can also qualify, but that'll be through the South American leg. I think what they were trying to say there is that it's not going to be opened up to the entire Americas, and there won't be an inter-American competition. So Mexico and Bolivia and Chile and those guys won't be able to participate in a competition where they would have a chance this World Cup cycle because they won't be able to get all those games in. That's my understanding of it. We still have to qualify though. We still have to be successful against, it's a little bit confusing, but we play Canada in a home and away fixture, and then we play the South American champions, which obviously because of the last World Cup, Argentina have qualified. So it'll then be their champion, which, as you just mentioned now, on rankings at the moment should be Uruguay, but it could be Brazil. We could play them and that'll be in the first 2 weeks of October. So it's slightly, I remember when that came out a couple of weeks ago, and I did think it was slightly ambiguous, but it didn't mean that we've automatically qualified. We still have to qualify.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure of. I got the impression initially I read it and I understood that, well, wow, the US and Canada are in, and the Caribbean basin is out. They don't get a chance. But it looks like the rest of the region in the Rugby Americas North doesn't get a chance because of the COVID situation. USA and Canada have to compete for that slot for Rugby's American North. And then the Southern Hemisphere, for the Latin America, that one is still being competed as well. As you mentioned, Argentina is an automatic qualifier because of where they finished. So that's likely going to be Uruguay, or as you said, possibly Brazil, or maybe Chile. Who knows? Sometimes they come out.
Exactly.
Sometimes they come out like gangbusters too. So the USA could still be in the outs. We could not qualify for the World Cup. We got to beat Canada.
We have to beat Canada. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
We have to beat Canada, and should that not happen, there will be the repechage. You can move into that the following year. Mm-hmm. But God forbid we don't want to put ourselves in that position. And but Canada would be saying the same thing as well. So it's going to be heated. It's going to be it's up for grabs, and it's going to be very competitive. And with Toronto playing now as a team, and a lot of the Canadian guys also participating in MLR at the moment now. I'm certainly anticipating Canada to improve as well. So absolutely giving them all the respect they deserve, and we're going to do everything we can to prepare for that.
Well, no, I as a head coach, I appreciate that perspective as a broadcaster and as a fan sitting on the outside. Going into the World Cup, looking at the last one, we saw Canada barely got into it. They didn't get the qualification, and then they went to the repechage. They managed to win that in the south of France against some stiff competition from Kenya, and even Germany was there, and Hong Kong did rather well. But they did win it. They got there, but I don't know what's going on with Canada's rugby program, but they looked a bit out of sorts in that season. And in the World Cup, they didn't look like they brought it together. I actually predicted that Namibia would get its first ever World Cup win. The Velviches would win against Canada, but then of course Typhoon Hagibis kind of had other ideas, so that game was scrubbed. But so going in, but this is tough. I mean, we can't use 2019 as a barometer. Nothing's the same. I mean, you're going to have brand new selections. You're going to have guys that you haven't had out training together as a squad ever, in many cases. And that raises the next question. So when do you anticipate making selections for the summer series?
Well, I'll answer your question. I mean, we spending time in the States now and getting around and recalibrating, for use of a better word, our entire EPS squad, and then all the players of national interest. So everybody who's USA eligible that we're tracking. And now what we have done in the COVID period is it's given us a chance to literally spread out our net across the whole of the USA, try and find all the players who have been picked up by MLR clubs or who are eligible through playing a really good level of club rugby or whatever the case may be, and then obviously those guys who are plying their trade in Europe as well. And so we've put a lot of effort into actually trying to formalize that. Believe it or not, that in itself was a challenge in years gone by. So now we're on top of that with this group, and now we want to monitor those players and see how they're getting on. And so from that point of view, I mean, we're probably working with a group of, in behind the scenes, we've got a group of 60 odd players that we're tracking very closely. We're tracking a much larger group. We're tracking over 200 throughout the whole of MLR, but those 60 guys, which is all approximately 4 or 5 deep per position, we're monitoring those guys closely. We're keeping strength and conditioning tabs and then medical tabs, and then finding out how they are, seeing what kind of support. It's a new world out there, Chris, in terms of coaching. The days gone by of, we'll assemble in 2 months' time, we'll spend 3 weeks together, and we'll be on top of it. Unfortunately, they're gone at the moment. So it's created a new challenge for us as coaches, and administrators, and so we're trying our best to get on top of that, and I'm feeling confident we are. And so I'm hoping that by mid-May to the beginning of June, we'll be pretty settled on our squad. Again, hoping that by then we'll have confirmation. Well, we should have confirmation by then in terms of where we're going. And so I'm hoping by the beginning of June, we'll have a very good handle on who our squad is going to be. And we're hoping we're going to be able to travel with about 28 or 30 players.
Excellent. Well, listen, I've got lots more questions, but let me take one from the viewers. This is from Henk Kloppe, who's from South Africa. It says, what's the South Africa influences in USA major leagues as players and coaches? So what's the impact of South Africans here in Major League Rugby, I think is the question.
It's reasonably strong. Again, more from a playing point of view, I would say at this moment in time, there's a good, strong South African contingent playing MLR rugby at the moment. The recruitment of those players has been interesting. Again, MLR is in an interesting situation. They don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to pay the very top players who are at the top of their game at the moment. So Peter Steph du Toit, for example, there's no club who is in the running at the moment to be able to pay the kind of money for him because of our salary caps and the way we, the MLR are trying to govern the game. So that's not necessarily happening. But what is interesting is that they've picked up some really good youngsters, guys who on the brink of playing provincial rugby have played a little bit of super rugby before, and because of the narrowing of the squads down in South Africa because of COVID, et cetera, that's offered those guys opportunities. So the MLR clubs have done quite well in being able to pick up a couple of those guys, and not too much from a coaching point of view. There's not a huge amount of South African coaches in the MLR. At this moment in time, or certainly there are one or two, but they've been based in the States for very many years. A couple of the guys down in Atlanta and stuff have been in America for a while. But certainly from a playing point of view, there's some guys who are really having a big impact. JP du Plessis. I mean, the list goes on. There's a lot of young South African guys. Monoreal Hayes is having a good effect, and as I say, maybe names that are not very well known in the South African rugby landscape, or, unless it was a beast last year who came over, pretty much towards the twilight of his season, and he came over more for the experience than he did necessarily for the money. But the South African guys are doing themselves proud, and I think, my understanding is that the clubs enjoy them, and a handful of them are trying to qualify, but it's going to take a while before that comes through.
Well, and we also get to see people that we hadn't seen in a while, and that's like Joe Peterson for San Diego, playing brilliantly for San Diego. And then this year, wow, I was I don't say disappointed, but I guess a little bit disappointed because the Olympics having been delayed. Cecil Africa took the decision to retire from sevens and the Blitzbach, but he's playing in Major League Rugby. That's pretty exciting for Cecil Africa fans.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, Cecil is a highly, highly accomplished, arguably up there with one of the best sevens players of all time. So maybe not the best, but certainly one of the very best that's played. I mean, his record speaks for itself. He's a fantastically elusive broken field player, and really interesting to see him playing 15s. Now in San Diego. I mean, I know they've got off to a slow start, but in a couple of the games that we've seen, and we actually got to see them out in Vegas in a preseason game, and Cecil was very good. They played him at 10 a little bit, and then they played him at 15, and wow, I mean, you can imagine Cecil with a little bit of space in the backfield or from a counter-attack point of view. And with Joe there now, I think it'll give them a really good balance. And he's really exciting to watch, and I think they're enjoying him down there. And he's one of the good examples. The South Africans have come over, and Bjorn Bezuidenhout is down there as well now. Obviously in Springbok again, Bjorn, highly renowned for his aerial skills, and a very, very good finisher. So some exciting guys, some exciting names out there, plying their trade at MLR.
Well, as a province fan, it's been a while since I've seen Bjorn Basson, so I'm actually very excited to see him playing in Major League Rugby. That'd be pretty cool. But it's interesting to watch some of the sevens players that really make the switch over to 15s and do it pretty well. Others struggle, but like Siabatla Sanatlo is just lights out in sevens. He's good in 15s, but he doesn't have the same impact, I don't think, although he's quite good. But you see guys like Ruan Nell and Quagga Smith who transfer over, and they don't miss a beat. They're right into it. So I'm hoping that Cess will have the same impact out there in California.
Yeah, look, I think, in their defense as well, it depends on the position that they played at sevens as well. I mean, if you're a seven specialist and you assess them and you're out on the wing, space is something that you've got a lot of. And then when you've got the gas that he's got, you see how he can, and Ciabella as well, you can see how they can take advantage of that on the sevens field. There's a little bit less space on the 15s field, in that scenario as well,
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so it's difficult for them. Whereas with Quagga, he's a forward in sevens. He puts his head in the heat of battle, and he does that in 15s as well. So it's different, obviously, but still, his role is slightly different. Whereas obviously in Sanatlo or in Cecil's case, you actually want to be seeing them finishing and scoring the tries, which is what they do a lot of in sevens.
Well, we've also seen here in the U.S. with sevens players who've played on the 15s Eagles, Madison Hughes, Danny Barrett, Martin Isefo, Manu Noah. These guys have really made big impacts with 15s. I imagine that's probably potentially something we might see, especially with sevens schedules being so messed up this year. Maybe we'll see some of those guys traditionally in the sevens team may compete to try to get on the 15s this year.
Yeah, I mean, got a very good relationship with Mike, and Mike, is a very open-minded guy. I mean, obviously at the moment now we're all rooting for the men's and women's sevens teams at the Olympics, and that is our priority at the moment now, with unfortunately the Women's 15s World Cup also being postponed. So priority now is just getting behind the sevens guys and hoping that they can medal at the Olympics. And that's where the focus is at the moment. But, post that, there's a couple of guys that, have spoken to both Mike and myself and have expressed an interest in maybe coming across to 15s. And, that could be very interesting. A couple of the guys last year were very, very impressive. As you say, Martia Sefa, Madison, Ben Pinkelman was outstanding in my opinion, and I think can make the crossover really, really well. But he's some sevens player as well, and at the moment our priority is for him to support the sevens program.
Ben, you're a good point. Ben Pinkelman's come a long way. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was one of his early seasons. I was in Vegas for the tournament, checking into my hotel. The little automated drop key box thing didn't work, so I had to stand in the queue. So some lady was standing behind me and she's chatting with me. Are you here for the rugby? I'm like, yeah, I come for the sevens. It's the only reason I come to Vegas. I don't gamble, just come for the sevens. She goes, well, my son plays. I said, oh, really? Where does he play? Oh, he plays for the US team. I'm like, oh, really? What's his name? Ben Pinkelman? Yeah, that's my son, Ben Pinkelman. That's one of the things I love about rugby. It's like a small town event, even at the major things. You go around the World Cup. I run into people and I meet. Like I was on a train to go up to a game. I think was it Uruguay was playing or Samoa, but I was going to a game in Japan, and I'm on the train. I went to go to the loo, and I come back. I'm like, Sir Bill Beaumont. How you doing?
Yeah.
It's right there on the train. You don't really get that in other major league sports, and hopefully that innocence and that openness will always remain with rugby. I hope that will be the case.
I hope so. Yeah. And I mean, again, as you say, the camaraderie and the spirit, no matter where you are in the world, if you bump into, as you say, if you bump into a legend like Bill Beaumont, more often than not, they've always got the time of day to speak to people and chat rugby, so it's our common language.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely brilliant. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Last thing I expected, the train was pretty empty, so I was a bit surprised. But going forward now, I guess you've kind of opened this door up a little bit. So, and I don't know you were speaking for USA Rugby, but let me ask this question from a USA Rugby perspective. We did have the Women's World Cup that was scheduled for this fall in New Zealand, and I was ready to go to it. And fortunately, they didn't sell tickets yet, so I don't have to worry about getting my money back. But that's now been postponed, unfortunately, because of COVID. So that was obviously a focus for USA Rugby, as was the Olympics, as you mentioned, which was postponed from last year. So what USA Rugby probably anticipated at the beginning of 2020 being a focus in 2021 isn't the focus anymore. We probably expected in 2021 to be worried about the men's test series and then the Women's World Cup, but the Women's World Cup's postponed. So now is the focus really on the Olympics, as you say? Is that job one, I imagine, for USA Rugby? And then maybe job two is what's going on with the men and women's teams as far as test series? And then will the Americas Rugby Championship still be taking place this fall?
No, is the easy answer to that.
Oh, okay.
Rugby Championship has very unfortunately fallen away now. The reasons for that are probably worth a podcast just on its own. Again, it's a bit above my pay grade at the moment to discuss that. It just does seem very, very sad and disappointing that it has fallen by the wayside, but it has, unfortunately. And again, probably best off speaking to one of the authorities on that. A guy like Dan Payne or maybe even Ross Young, they can speak to that a little bit better. But unfortunately, the ARC, as we knew it before and what we thought was growing into a pretty good competition, is now no more. Again, this year being replaced, as we mentioned earlier, by Rugby World Cup qualifying games, which is the 2 against Canada and then the 2 against the South American champions, or not, if that's the case. And then we have to revise what's going on with COVID, and what happens in the summer will pretty much determine what happens in November as well. Again, there are plans afoot at the moment for us to do something, but again, I think everybody is just taking one step at a time. So the plans pretty much are the women are, I think well, they're down the road in Glendale. They in camp at the moment now. They were planned to be in camp because of their preparation, so they've gone ahead with that, which is great because they're getting a lot of time together with Rob and his crew at the moment. So they'll have a very good understanding. So they're continuing on that development path. Obviously, the sevens programs are full on into the program of the Olympics. I think the women are in Dubai at the moment as we speak, and the men are planning to go to a tournament. And we're getting ready for the summer, and then obviously a Rugby World Cup qualifier. But then the fifth element of USA Rugby at the moment is our development pathways, and that's something that's very, very important. And we're working tirelessly behind the scenes, or certainly the high performance department is under Hugh Bevan and Brendan Keane, and they're putting some very good programs together now. And the appointment of Mike Tolkien as the director of coaching, and then under 20s and under 23 coaches that have been appointed as well now. But we need to get back to rugby for that to happen. The colleges need to get back and playing, and everybody needs to get back. Clubs need to get back and playing, and then we need to put a lot of emphasis into the development of our younger players. So there's a lot of focus points, and I think, as I mentioned the word recalibrate earlier, I think off the field people have done an absolutely tremendous job. I mean, it's really been a thankless task, not only because of COVID, but because of the bankruptcy as well. Mm-hmm. And so restarting the company again has been a big challenge, and people have worked very, very hard in the office to get that done on and off the field. But, that's where our focus points are. But everybody's now waiting for the next step in terms of when we can get back to rugby and when rugby can be back and up and running in its entirety around the whole country, really. So right from our grassroots level, when all the high schools get back again, obviously, how does that lead on to colleges, the college game, and then how does that lead on to the club game as well? So that's where our focus points are at the moment now. So working really hard, but unfortunately, a lot of it at the moment is out of our hands.
Well, you segued into something that I was going to get to here shortly, because I know it's near and dear to your heart, and that's about coaching and youth development and then rugby development. But I think that from the outside, for fans of rugby here in the U.S., this is my assessment, and you can agree or disagree, and happy to hear what you've got to say one way or the other. But I think that when it comes to 2021, I think as rugby fans and supporters, we've got to be very understanding about where we're at. COVID threw us more than a monkey wrench. It really caused all kinds of problems for us across the board, around the world, but especially in the USA Rugby, where things were just getting started. On top of that, the Chapter 11 bankruptcy didn't help. And I think that when we judge success in 21, we shouldn't look to see the Eagles go 4-0 in a test series, and beat whoever they play. Hopefully qualify for the World Cup. That would be success. We'd like to see that. But when it comes to success this year, I think we really need to dial it back a little bit. And the fact that USA Rugby is actually functioning, I was worried, Gary, if I need to start a GoFundMe account to fund Gary's salary, because is there any money coming to USA Rugby? We have no matches, no television contracts right now. But I think that we really need to modulate. You said recalibrate for what's going on with USA Rugby, but for those outside, I think we need to modulate our expectations. That's not to we should always demand excellence, but our expectations, I think, should be well framed. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I do, Chris. I think it's a fair statement. Again, I'm tempered, as you were when you made the statement as well, is because I don't want to compromise on excellence, and I think what it has done is it's opened, certainly completely after 20 years of being a professional coach. This is uncharted waters for me, to have to coach players online and ask them to do stuff in their stairwell at home, and can you run in the park, and can you take your hour a day, and this is the type of effort we want. But I think it's going to bring a new athlete to us. I think it's going to bring a new individual. I think it's going to bring out, and maybe it's just the optimism in me, but I think it's going to bring the people who want it more. The cream's going to rise to the top. But you are right. I mean, we haven't played together as a team for nearly 2 years. And when we get together, because of logistics and where we are with the MLR at the moment, we're not going to have time to have a 2-3 week camp.
Yeah.
We don't have that, because the MLR are playing and we have to respect them. And we've got a very good relationship with the MLR, and we want to keep that going, So we can't yank players out of the MLR teams to just go on a preseason camp. We don't have that luxury. So and we're shooting for the stars by trying to play teams like South Africa and England and top teams. So we're asking a lot. We're asking a huge amount. But why not dive into the deep end? Let's. And you say, I mean, the expectations are going to be high, and they're going to we're putting some very, very tough challenges ahead. I mean, everybody's seen what's going on in England with the Six Nations. They are going to be absolutely steaming in the summer. There's no doubt about that. Eddie's a fantastic coach, and he's going to get them back. And what better way for them to get their confidence by playing, USA and Canada again, and trying new things. So we know what a good team they're going to be. Unfortunately, because if rumors were to be believed, with the recent Six Nations not necessarily going their way, you would imagine less England players may make the British and Irish team now. So that's probably going to be a stronger England team we're going to be playing up against. So, but yeah, it's going to be very tough for us. But we want to get better. We don't want to get to the next World Cup and say, well, we haven't played this level of competition for 4 years, and cut out these excuses, and but it's going to be hard. It's going to require a lot of patience, and it'll be a couple of tough years, but hopefully the idea is that we've got a nice, strong, young group, and we'll go out and we'll give 100% of ourselves for 100% of the time. I've got no doubt about that. Hopefully fire a couple of shots, and then reassess it at the end of summer and go into the Rugby World Cup qualifiers. And if by Christmas this year we've qualified for the Rugby World Cup, I would deem this to be a very successful year. And even if that is off the back of a couple of hidings from better rugby teams than us at this moment in time, but we would have learned a lot from it. I mean, I know for a fact we learned a huge amount from the Rugby World Cup, but unfortunately we haven't been able to do anything about those lessons yet. So I know it sounds a little bit like coaches talk, but I don't mean it to be that or cliched. I mean, we've got to put ourselves in a dark hole for us to get better, and and that's what our plan is at the moment. But that's why at the beginning of the call I spoke about how optimistic and excited I am about the fact that our guys are back and playing. So I mean, not enough has been said or compliments have been given to George Killebrew and Nish and his team at MLR just for getting the game back onto the field. For you and I to bump into each other last weekend and watch a game of rugby with, even if there were only 1,000 people in the stadium, it was still wonderful. It was an amazing event. I thought it was a really good game of rugby. So and there's some very good games of rugby that are being played at the moment now. So
well, that's what I'm sorry. That's what I was going to get to. I was going to say that, we ran into each other there at the Old Glory DC versus the Rugby Atlanta Rattlers there in Leesburg, Virginia, which was interesting. And now for those who weren't there and didn't catch it on the Rugby Network or catch it on television, it was sold out. Now, you wouldn't know that by looking at the stands, but it was sold out because of COVID restrictions. They're limited, but they were limited to 750 seating that day. So they were sold out. I mean, it's kind of weird to say, hey, welcome to a sold out venue when the stands look 3/4 empty, but it was a heck of a game, man. What are your thoughts about that game? I thought that very spirited, pretty well played, given that guys are just getting back into it.
Yeah, I mean, and, we know full well as well that the coaches are all pretty frustrated that they haven't had their team for as long as they wanted them. But I thought there were two very well coached teams. Obviously, Atlanta had a fantastic win the week before against Toronto, and Old Glory had played very, very well down in NOLA. And, unfortunately, by their own admission, went to sleep a little bit and ended up drawing that game. But great start for them to have a draw and a win in the first two games. And, so it was two teams who, were playing good rugby. And I think that was shown. I mean, speaking to the Old Glory guys afterwards, they said, they were in a very, very physical battle. And, and I was impressed with both teams. I thought they were very well constructed. Both teams knew what they were trying to do. But as you say, it's early days still. And, a couple of the teams still don't have all their players back yet. Some of them were injured. Some of them are still returning because of COVID protocols. So, I mean, it's early days at the moment, but I thought the standard of rugby and the excitement level was very, very good on the weekend, and some very, very, very good skills on display on the weekend. Some very good attacking rugby, good questions with ball in hand, and met very convincingly with some very good defense as well. And strategically as well, I thought both teams played strategically quite well as well. So set piece was good to see. I thought the set piece went very well. So all in all, at this moment in time, just excited to see the guys playing rugby, but really, really, really fulfilling to see the fact that, the rugby RP has been very good in terms of what's being coached into the players at the moment and what the players are trying to do. So I thought it was at this stage of the season, it was a game of quite high skill at the moment. And I know it's only going to get better.
Well, and I was going to say, and then you and I had the good fortune of going to what appeared to be the best game of the weekend. If you look at the scores of the other games, apparently we got the best competition that day.
It certainly was, and I mean, having an end score like that, I mean, Atlanta would feel, devastated that they didn't convert better and give themselves more of a chance. And, and Old Glory would be delighted the fact that they came away with a win. So, as you say, it was a good, hard-fought match and some very good displays out there.
Yeah, and Rugby Atlanta scored in the 78th minute. They get a try, they convert it, they get the ball back, they come all the way down the field, and of course they had a turnover. But I mean, they had the ball, inside the 22 and had a chance to notch it up. And so you can't ask for much more. I mean, from a fan, that was very exciting.
No, and and as one of the members of the ATL team said to me afterwards, we've got to learn to win those games, and Bob, the only way you're going to learn to win those games is be in those positions. You do unfortunately learn the most. Their reflection this week in their video session would be of huge learning. What do we do next time? How do we, focus on our next task? Should we have potentially called another player that calls for calmer heads? But they'll find themselves in that position again, and absolutely no doubt they would have learned from the lessons.
Well, you said a few minutes ago, it may sound like coaches talk when you're talking about competition and, potential hiding and such. I don't see it that way at all, Gary. I think you're just being realistic about what's out there. And it is important to play a team that's it's above your level or perceived to be above your level, because you have to challenge your players, and that's something they've got to do. But I think there's a real disadvantage for a lot of rugby unions around the world because the Six Nations has gone on. It's had its competition this year, so those countries have a huge advantage. Now, a lot of players from around the world are playing there. There's South Africans that play there. They play in the Premiership and all these places. But those leagues up in the Northern Hemisphere in Europe have been playing, and Japan has had rugby too. So some countries have an advantage because their players have been playing, they're fit, and they've got more competition under the belt. It's going to be a real challenge for us in Canada and for a lot of other folks to compete, and do very well, especially this year. But hopefully by 2023, we'll see the level of experience level out, for lack of a better term.
No, it's a very good point you make, Chris. I mean, it is a concern. I mean, there always, let's just call a spade a spade, there always was a slight divide between tier 1 and tier 2. We knew that. We knew why. And I felt that if you took the Japans of the world, et cetera, let's take ourselves out of the equation. But if you take a handful of the supposedly tier 2 teams, I think the gap was closing. It certainly wasn't closed yet, but Japan asking questions the way they did and getting to a quarterfinal, which hadn't happened very often from a tier 2 nation, and us having the year that we had in 2018 and asking those questions, and Uruguay having a fantastic year, and when they had a couple of big upsets and obviously got a win in the Rugby World Cup as well. So I am a little bit worried that, and it's not anybody's fault. I need to stress that it's unfortunately what the pandemic has done is that everybody's been under pressure. Obviously, we've been severely hit because of ultimately we've paid the ultimate price in going into bankruptcy. But Australia were in a financial crisis. New Zealand were in a financial crisis. South Africa were in a financial crisis. As everybody, it's well written and reported how much trouble England are in financially as well. So all that happens is that the mother body in World Rugby, their priority has to go to starting to look after those teams now, where those teams potentially, or countries, were a little bit more self-sufficient than we were. So unfortunately, I am a little bit worried, and as you've already alluded, Canada and ourselves haven't played or assembled literally since the Rugby World Cup. So I'm a little bit nervous that what may actually be the circumstances of COVID and what's happened in the last 18 months is that the divide might grow a little bit bigger again. But again, that we're aware of that. Again, it's slightly out of our hands in terms of how that has happened. But what is in our hands is the ability to develop and for our guys to get back to play. And so that's why the focus is why I spoke so much about the development part of rugby and getting our youngsters playing as quickly as possible. And then obviously delighted that the MLR is back and up and running at the moment as well.
Well, let's get to the development piece because you mentioned that. So we do have here, and for youth, we do have things like play rugby, girls rugby, but they're focused on very specific demographics. Of course, rugby's for everybody. With USA Rugby's financial troubles it's had in the recent past, who's stepping into the gap, or is USA Rugby still engaged? I've talked to Nate Osborne. He talked about youth programs that NOLA are doing. So I get the impression from having talked to some people in Major League Rugby that a lot of these franchise Major League Rugby are making an effort to fill some of that space to develop local kids and bring the game up. Is that accurate? And is there somebody filling the gap, or is there even a gap?
No, there's no question of a doubt that there's a gap. But, again, part of the MLR's initiative is the fact that the clubs are also going to be running their own academies for their own benefit as well. Moving forward, it pays for them to be running an academy because you don't necessarily, the model will tell you, not only in rugby, but in any professional sport. San Antonio Spurs from a handful of years ago when they were NBA champions, again, didn't have a top 10 draft pick for the entire time that they were NBA champions because they had such a good development program. That is a well-known fact, and the science of how to be able to create a good model. What happened in Japan as well is a very good example, is that you create from within. So the clubs are not going to be able to have an open checkbook for the next 10 years and be buying all the best players around. They're going to have a very strong level of developing within. And so that's the reason why a lot of the MLR clubs have taken that initiative. That coupled with the fact that USA Rugby have also taken a very strong initiative. I mean, in the months of May and June, there's 7 talent ID camps that are going to be taking place across the entire America. And that's going to be run by our high performance department and all 4 of our high performance coaches. And we're going to be going around. I'm not actually running it, but I'm hopefully going to be attending a couple of them. And, in conjunction with the local clubs, the local MLR clubs and club ambassadors, what's going to happen is in that region, a whole lot of kids are going to be invited. They're going to be captured. We're going to test them. We're going to run, they're going to be running talent ID days with them. And then that's going to amalgamate from the 7 is going to amalgamate into a national one over a longer period of time, which hopefully financially willing will be potentially even as long as a 10-week period. So there's a lot of initiatives in place, but it's certainly being helped by the clubs as well, who are also showing their initiative to run their own youth programs and academies as well. So that's the idea. Look, Chris, the bottom line is, we're never going to please everybody all of the time. It is an absolutely massive country. This is not a country where you hop on a plane and in 2 hours you've gone from one end of the country to the other like you can in most of the other rugby playing countries. Unfortunately, geographically, we're absolutely massive. And, and let's call it what it is. Maybe necessarily USA haven't done things correctly in the past, but the intent and the ambition now is to try and do things correctly. But if we just take the sheer volume of people that we've got playing rugby, we'll be shocked and horrified about how many people are actually playing rugby and where rugby is being played in America, from Indiana down to California, down to Wyoming, wherever you're talking about, there is rugby of some way, shape, or form. In some areas it's huge. Texas, some areas the local club game is very, very big. But we do need to start somewhere, and what better way to start than using the infrastructure of the MLR at the moment? And they need it, we need it, so they want to build it up. And if we work in conjunction with them and we run those talent ID days with them and then get our academy coaches out there, then hopefully we can form quite a powerful program in the years to come. And a pathway for these kids to be able to go to. We want a pathway where, when I say local, it may have to mean that the kid has to travel from one state to the other, but hopefully maybe only Wyoming to Utah, for example, and not have to go all the way across to the East Coast, for example, to get a game of rugby.
Well, you touched on a few really good points there. It's a big secret for people outside the U.S. And I don't know if you probably knew because you're a rugby man from way back, but a lot of people abroad really have no idea or appreciation of the fact that local club rugby has been huge in this country for decades, and it's been very healthy at that level. And also at the collegiate level, it's done well in last couple of decades. In fact, the Collegiate Rugby Championship was held annually right here in Chester, Philadelphia, at Talon Energy Stadium for the past several years. But I guess Penn Mutual is not the backer anymore. So now it's going to be in New Orleans this year, and they are going to do it because last year was canceled. But so that's been there for a long time. But I think what you're getting at is that growing up as a kid, you have to have a path. If I play baseball, I can play Little League baseball. I can play American Legion baseball. I can play in high school. I can get a scholarship to go to university if I'm talented enough and get my education paid for, go to school, and I can sign a contract with minor league base, and I can make a career of it if I have the talent, the opportunities there. And the same across so many other sports. That hasn't been the case with rugby until very recently. We're just getting to that stage now. The abortive pro rugby one season thing was not a path. And now we have Major League Rugby, which is looking promising. So I think what you're getting at is that you have to have a pipeline where kids can see some advantage for being involved in this rather than just having fun, something good to do for camaraderie, and actually a chance to make a career of it. And that's kind of where we're getting to now. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I wasn't in the country over the pro rugby year, so it's not right for me to talk about that because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I'm not knowledgeable about it, but all I can say is that the here and now is that we're into our 4th season, the 3rd season only obviously being damaged by a world pandemic, but we're into our 4th season. There are 13 clubs, 12, 13, 14 clubs, however you want to look at it. One has been suspended by their own choice at the moment, but they're back next year. There's a whole lot of, there's a handful of applications for a couple more clubs. We very well maybe get to a situation in a handful of years' time where, and I'm thumb sucking, I don't work with the MLR, so please, Chris, I don't want to be, I'm giving a scenario here on your show, but it could be a scenario where we've got 20 clubs across the country in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, which we've already got at the moment. It's manageable, it's affordable. they're all running academies. And when you start looking at 20, and you start spreading them geographically from LA to San Diego to Boston to New York to Texas to Utah to where and they should potentially Chicago, hopefully Dallas, those strategic areas, obviously New Orleans, Chicago, whatever, Washington, then there's enough of a geography and they've all got an academy, then there hopefully will be some form of a proper pipeline. And, the Rugby Network, Fox Sport, getting a couple of games on CBS, the game starts getting a lot more vision by youngsters. And, funnier things have happened. And then it starts becoming a sport that's actually appealing for young guys and girls, for that matter, to want to play and go down to the local club and aspire to hopefully pick up a contract. I mean, you just see an exercise like Atlanta, for example, what they're doing with their 404 Academy. That spreads from Atlanta, goes down into the Florida area. Now, at this moment in time, there's not a Major League Rugby club in Florida. I know there's one in Miami that are talking about it, but at this moment in time, that's the area, South Carolina, Florida, that's who they're trying to capture. So that can only bear fruit, when you've got a club who are focused on that, they focused on that kind of a network, and then hopefully it all works up in the pipeline to ultimately all being able to be overseen by us and be able to pick up the best talent.
No, I think there's a great point. You also made a point a short while ago about the size and the enormity of America. I think that most people have never been to America. They just look at a globe and they go, oh, okay. But when you actually come here and you have to travel from Maine to Miami, from DC to San Francisco, from Seattle to Atlanta, it's not a small country. And, it's quite a bit out there. And also there's a possibility, even potential, maybe having a franchise in Hawaii. I mean, there were some All Blacks players behind an effort to put a franchise in Hawaii. I don't know what's going to come of that. We don't have to comment on that, but I mean, that's a whole other wrinkle. I mean, you don't have professional sports teams out in Hawaii because of the travel for the most part. It's not like people won't go to it. I mean, Hawaii is a good example of, for years, I said, I don't understand why the NBA and the NHL don't have franchises in Vegas, because Vegas has a guaranteed audience for every game you have, because so many people from around the country travel who are fans of whatever team is in town. So you're guaranteed to get some gate revenue just from somebody. I was like, when Vegas played Montreal, the arena, I was there at a game, it was full, and it was full of Canadians because they were all down in Vegas to gamble and have a good holiday, and they went to the game. So Hawaii would be the same way. I think, if a franchise rocked up in Hawaii, you'd have a lot of people out there on holiday who would go to watch the rugby just for it. And players would probably love to play in Hawaii. I've never been, but I'm sure they'd like the Hawaii out there. It'd be nice.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny you should mention Hawaii, because one of the 7 talent ID days is going to take place in Hawaii, because there's a very strong Polynesian community there, and they've got very strong roots in, as you mentioned, a couple of All Blacks are looking to do it, but there's a handful of Americans as well who are interested in that, and they want to be recognized as well. I'm talking about people in Hawaii. They want to be recognized as well, and they also want to be able to have development opportunities within the game and proper coaching. And you're right. I mean, that there was very strong talk about potentially a franchise going there, and I don't think that talk is necessarily dead. So that would be unbelievably exciting, and some wonderful athletes down in Hawaii as well. So it could be a really exciting prospect.
Well, Gary, you've been with USA Rugby for a few years now. You had an amazing first season out of the gate, just gangbusters coming out. Had great. We had a challenging 2019, but did get to the Rugby World Cup, and 2020 was just stolen from us. And now we're in 2021. You've been quoted as saying, and I think that you're not the only person who's ever said this, but and if I've got the quote wrong, let me know. I'm tired of hearing about the sleeping giant, referring to the USA as just a sleeping giant in rugby waiting to wake up. If that's an accurate quote, which I think it is, I agree with it. And I think we should stop talking about America as a sleeping giant when it comes to rugby, and just talk about what we are doing, what we will accomplish, and what the realistic outcomes are, which could be endless.
Exactly. I mean, it's just repeating all of what we've just said now. I mean, instead of talking about it, let's just get on and do something about it. And again, that's why, I mean, I am obviously the national coach, but I feel very strongly about the development program, now. The other thing is as well, Chris, I don't know whether I'm wrong in saying this, or whether I'm naive, but the fact of the matter is, I'm going to leave this position one day, because that's unfortunately how it works in professional rugby. And I'd very much like to leave the team in a better place than, when I took it over. And what I mean by that is if I can have a hand in helping and the step up for the next coach who's going to come in, which, hopefully it's not too soon, but, when that does happen, I want to do it in a selfless way. I want to see American rugby grow. And one of the things that, we do want to do is we want to put a decent pathways into place, because, people think about, you put a 4-year plan and they think, oh, it's such a long time. It's not a long time. 4 years is not a long time. For a guy to go from 18 to 22 years old, the amount of development that he can do in that short period of time is tremendous, but we have to support it. And I'm very happy to say that, while we're still in our infancy post bankruptcy and post COVID, that is a very big focus point of USA Rugby's at the moment, and while we may not necessarily achieve these great heights at the national level yet for a couple of years, if this pipeline is coming through and we're developing these young kids and these special athletes, then, we can stop talking about this sleeping giant and we can start producing something on the field, and you just go something left field, like in Glendale at the moment, they're running this crossover camp and they're taking athletes from other sports. And, there's a lot of work that's still to be done, but, they are wonderful athletes and you can just see them absolutely loving rugby. Now, I'm not necessarily interested in the politics behind it. And where they are and what they're doing, et cetera, doesn't really bother me in terms of the politics. All I'm interested in is I see young guys, a group of 30, nearly 40 guys who are being introduced to rugby who are absolutely loving it, and they're just like a sponge for learning. So when you see an exercise like that and you see guys coming from who've never picked up a rugby ball before, but were maybe, this close away from being drafted to an NFL, that's the kind of level of athlete that they are, then, that's quite exciting. That's quite exciting. However, they're not going to develop in 6 months. It's not going to be 6 months. But 2 to 3 years, you could have some really, really special individuals.
Well, I was going to ask you a few other things, but we're coming up on time here. I don't want to keep you because you've got a busy day. So a couple last questions, but a statement on my part before we go is, we see, because of circumstances or because of migration, lots of South African players rocking up in other shores and playing for other national sides. CJ Standard just announced his retirement from Ireland. What a standout player he was there from South Africa. Of course, DTW Vandermeer seems to be ageless in Canada. He's still playing and now playing in Major League Rugby as well. But we also sometimes profit from people moving elsewhere. And one of those things I think we profited for USA Eagles is the reality that a young man's family moved to Nebraska, and Hunko Hemeshuis is now a USA Eagle. And he's an interesting young talent, and I'm looking forward to seeing him making the squad. I hope he does. You don't have to address that in any way. I'm not put you on the spot there, but he's a good young man. I think he's got a lot of talent, so hopefully he'll be there. But let me get to the last two questions here, Gary, before we finish up here. One thing that's very close and near and dear to your heart is mentoring coaches and developing coaches. Is that something that you're really hoping to leave a mark on here before your tenure, whenever it does in the future end in USA Rugby, is either put something in place or improve something that's already in place to develop coaching, or maybe coaches academy or something like that here in the US?
Very much like to. I'd very much like to. I think the starting point for us is to do the pipeline with the players. And then once we have these talent identification days, and that, for example, when I gave you the example earlier on about the clubs supporting that the clubs will have young guys coming through. So an example that's often used is like Ollie Khalifi is playing rugby at Utah at the moment. He's in and out of the Utah squad, but Ollie is very instrumental in helping be one of the ambassadors in terms of encouraging the game in the Utah area and attracting youngsters to come and play the game. Now, Ollie is a perfect candidate that we could put some time and energy into working with Ollie to see him go from player to coach as well. Now, obviously, he's got tremendous knowledge about the scrum, and that's where his area of expertise is. So it would be amazing to see a guy like Ollie develop, and Nate Augsburger in San Diego and X in New York, and whoever the case may be, is because lots of these players have got aspirations to wanting to go on to coach. So once we get this group of players together, then you can start to also work on the development of the coaches as well. And so the short answer to your question is absolutely. I mean, it's so critical that, Chris, because we also do have the slight danger of being able to have this wonderful plan to have this big net of all these players, but ultimately, if we're not going to increase the level of coaching and the coach education, then we're all just going to stagnate. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of players playing, but no one's really going to be getting the coaching expertise to be getting better and better. So that is 100% a very big focal point of us being able to, but we have to unfortunately walk before we crawl before we walk. I beg your pardon. And so we just starting to learn to crawl at the moment now, and that's just to get the word out there and spread the word. But from a coach education point of view as well, there's a lot of work being done at the moment to be able to raise the level of the education of the coaching that's happening at the moment as well.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And I know that's near and dear to your heart. And that's one of the reasons why you were brought into town, is to help improve that situation. So hopefully we make progress there. So it's good to hear that. And let me wrap up with this question for you, Gary. So we're in Major League Rugby. You and I ran into each other at the Old Glory game last week. You'll be at another game this weekend, I imagine. So you may not have a training academy available to you right now because players, but I guess in some respects, vicariously, you've got kind of a fitness and training program going on, because a lot of your selections are on the pitch right now for Major League Rugby. So are you traveling around to games to evaluate players potentially for selections, or are you just supporting the league? It seems like USA Rugby and Major League Rugby are trying to work very closely together. Am I off on that?
No, not at all. I mean, yes to all of the above. I mean, I'm not necessarily going around and, I wouldn't go as far as saying scouting players, because I can get to one game a weekend and then the rest I'm watching on the Rugby Network or watching it the day later, or whatever the case. So I'm getting to watch all the players. I mean, we correlate that information on a Monday and Tuesday, and then I go through the data on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, with the staff and with my colleagues, and we discuss those players in any case in depth. So, that's going to happen in any case. But, it does make a difference to be able to go to the club and actually watch the game live, see what the guys are doing, whether it's what they're doing in the warm-up versus what they're trying to do in the field. When you're next to the field, you can hear the communications. You can, the other thing is as well is, that's the nice part to go and watch the game. But, we spent time at some clubs during the course of the week, and hopefully within the weeks and months ahead, going to be going back to a couple more clubs, and they've all been so welcoming. And if I can spend time at the club, then you actually see what they're trying to do, and it's, if anything, for me to continue to learn as well. But also just to see, it's so much more valuable watching a guy train for 2 or 3 sessions during the course of the week than just watching him maybe come on for 20 minutes at the end of the game. That's also not quite fair on him. So I might be able to see something, very impressive, which has been the case at 1 or 2 of the clubs that I've visited. And then obviously as well, it's not just the squad of 60 that we're looking at. We're looking at everybody in the group, and just last weekend, we were very impressed by a couple of young guys that, that played, that, are on our watch list at the moment, but, we didn't necessarily have them in the EPS squad. But wow, it was brilliant to watch them playing. We know about them because they're USA qualified, but it's really nice to actually see them, in action, and actually see how it's going for them. So, that's the other thing as well, is we really want to get that competition going. We don't want it to be a situation we've only got 2 hookers to pick, because that's just the 2 standout hookers. We'd love to see that there's more hookers or centers or every position coming through that are asking questions and are developing it, so whether it's young Monaghan at Austin, or it's Ryan James at LA, or whoever it is, it's just exciting to see new names on the block, and, see guys, whether he's playing with Matt Gitto one week or he's playing with Ben Seamer the next week, or Will Maggie. It's great to see them interacting and mixing with those guys. So it's important for us to be able to see that as well. But yeah, just to get to enjoy rugby again. That's also the
no doubt.
I
think that's what we're all really looking forward to, is a chance to see rugby. And it's nice to see Major League Rugby, and the Rugby Network is brilliant. It's for those watching the program, it's free registration. Watch every Major League Rugby game. They have excellent interviews. They have wonderful pregame analysis. They do a really good job there. It's a heck of a deal that Major League Rugby's worked out here. I don't know how they worked it out, and I don't want to know. I just know that as a fan, it's great, because it was so frustrating to go, Do I go to CBS? Is it on ESPN? No, it's not covered. There's no team within 5 states of me. How do I watch it this weekend? Very frustrating. That's not the case this year. You can watch all Major League Rugby on the Rugby Network. Go check it out. But Gary, my plans for summer are really horked up right now. I had plans, the British and Irish Lions series. I was going to go to 6 games in South Africa. And right now the series is taking place, but we don't know if there's going to be spectators. So I don't know if I'm going to be in South Africa for that. So that's kind of up in the air. I intended to be in New Zealand for the Women's World Cup. That's not going to happen now. So I'm going to have to adjust my schedule, and I'll be waiting with bated breath to see if and when we get some summer test series set up, where they're going to be, and wonder if I'll be able to go to a USA Eagles game. That might be where you might find me this summer. If not there,
Cool.
some of the HSBC 7s as they occur later in the year.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll know all that information sooner rather than later, Chris. So, but it'll be good to see you down at one of the Eagles games this year. No doubt about that.
That'd be awesome. Gary Gold, listen, I want to thank you a lot for your time and appreciate you coming on the channel again. Really do appreciate it. You have an open invitation to come back anytime you want to talk, and I will invite you back again. If we have to, we get you on for 5 or 10 minutes for a short interview and not keep you for an hour, because I know you're a busy guy. But thanks a lot, Gary. It's a pleasure having you on again.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to all your listeners, and we appreciate the support. Take care. See you soon.
All right, take care, Gary. All right, folks, that's Gary Gold, USA Eagles head coach. Thanks a lot, Gary. My pleasure to have you back on again. This was on Facebook today. It'll be posted onto Odyssey, Rumble, and other platforms after I finish saving it when I'm done here and edit and put it back up. So thanks a lot to everybody tuning in. Thanks for the question, Hank, that came up earlier. Most of what I saw after that were statements by people, not really questions for the most part. So if I missed your question, I apologize. But that was fantastic. Really appreciate Gary's sharing what's going on with rugby. I don't think I fully realized the Americas Rugby Championship was gone. It sounds like it's gone now. That's unfortunate. That was quite an interesting competition. And frankly, it's the only title the USA has won since the Olympics back in the 1920s. We won the Americas Rugby Championship 2 years back to back. We tied with the Argentina 15s 1 year, but won it based on points. And then we won it outright the next year. So pretty unfortunate if that's gone forever, because it was pretty interesting competition. Anyway, USA Eagle coach Gary Gold, and he's got quite a job ahead of him, and he's got a good head on his shoulders. So I'm sure he'll do the best he can with what's going on. And anyway, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. I appreciate you watching the program, and I will be back on later today. But right now I've got to get off. I've got a teleconference that I've got to take care of. So thanks a lot for the support. It is Easter, by the way, in case it is Thursday. If anybody doesn't tune into my programs this weekend, have a pleasant Easter. I will be out of the network on Saturday and probably most of Sunday as well, because I'll be traveling. I'll be covering the DC Old Glory game on Saturday. And before that, I'll be at a Hershey Bears game. So I've got hockey and rugby to cover on Saturday. Be a long day. I'll probably get back around 10 o'clock at night. And then Sunday, I head off to New Jersey for an NHL game, which I'll be covering. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it, and have a lovely day. And we'll catch you here next time on Chris Wyatt Africa.